calendar really easy in by hitting Control or Command and then the plus key on my keyboard, because I want to see this information nice and big for the sake of recording. But what you see is I'm in the top right corner and I'm going to navigate to calendar settings. You also see the ability to get help with the calendar and some of the labs features, meaning the demo trial areas. So here we are looking at our settings, and in this case we have our default language, what country we're living in, the time zone that we officially live in as home, and then you could get it to display additional time zones on the left-hand side of your calendar if you would like to, and it will just, you get a long list of options of all the different time zones that are there. You could display how you want the date formatted, the time, what day the week starts on, so instead of it starting on Monday, it starts on Sunday, whether or not you want to see your weekends. And then, what's your default view? I like to see my whole week laid out. I don't like to look at it just by what's happening today, but you could switch that up. You also could show how many days you want displayed in advance, where you're located, and that will serve up some ads maybe in particular for that. If you're showing any weather, you could turn on the weather or turn it off. You can add in if you're operating on Celsius versus Fahrenheit, whichever one you want. Show events that you have declined. If you say, no, I will not attend, do you want that to still display in your calendar or not? I like to see it and know that I'm not planning to go. Add invitations to the calendar. We could do I'll switch that up to yes, but don't send reminders unless I've responded with yes or maybe. And then alternate calendar, if you needed to, in a different, if you wanted to show a Chinese calendar or something, there's some other calendar options here. You want some reminders, like play a sound notification together with reminders or show floating desktop notifications. You could turn those things on. Your daily display tips, I like to see the tips and I like the shortcuts to be on, so I will save this information. Then I'm going to go back into some of the settings so we see some other features under the other calendar settings. So for calendars, the next tab over, you could set up multiple calendars, and so these are, think of it like a category basically of the calendars that you want to display inside of your bigger calendar. So I have calendars or categories basically on what projects and things I work on, what I do. And those calendars you see down below, you can either import a calendar to this or export your calendar so that you could get to it from, say for instance, if you're using the calendar function on your Outlook calendar, or you could export it to the Mac calendar system as well. So we see, these are different calendars that I've subscribed to across the web. So for instance, if I go to look at the Harrisburg Twitterati list, I can, on that calendar, somebody can embed a Google Calendar into a page. I could choose to make that show up on my calendar as well, and that's actually what I prefer to do. The next area we see is mobile setup, and this is pretty handy. You can choose to notify people based on their phone numbers. So if I put in, now this is my Google Voice number, and then send a verification code. It may not support its own Google Voice number. Yep. So we see OK, and it tells me my verification. So here I could put in that info and finish my setup. And I love Google Voice for this. So here I could say, hey, what things do I want to get notices for? So I want to get a text message if I get a new invitation to an event, if an event gets changed or canceled, or any replies to that. And I could also get it to email to my mobile device a daily agenda. So that's pretty cool. So I'll save that, and now that's set up. And we have one last tab that we can look at in there, and that's the labs area inside of this. So I just went to, the shortcut was to go to labs, but you'll also see that it's the fourth option across the side. So what this does is it gives you some of the trial features that they have. So gentle reminders I have turned on, meaning a pop-up reminder if I marked that I wanted to be reminded of something. Automatically decline events. If I say that I am busy and unable, if I say busy and decline invites, that means that it won't let anyone even send me the invite. It says, nope, they're not available. I have enabled the event attachments, the little flare on my site, the smart rescheduler, so it will try to help if we're all using Google Calendars figure out when we're all available. If you have any one-on-one appointments, you see this kind of parentheses there to remind you. You could look at the entire year. You could add any of the gadgets on the page, and I'll show you the Remember the Milk gadget, which I love. Dim future repeating events. So here we see if we've got a couple of repeating future events, we can kind of mark those particularly. You could add in a background image if you like. I tend to just like it plain, but you could add in images in the back. Free or busy is really handy to see if they're available to meet. Jump to a date lets you see when you want to, you could jump to some date far into the future. You can be reminded when your next appointment happens to be, and also you can see the world's clock. Once you have that all kind of configured and saved, let me zoom back out and we'll look at what those labs things did. So earlier we set up the My Calendars, and really this is one calendar, but inside of this one calendar I have folders or general categories in my calendar. And then the one that's listed down here says tasks. And the tasks one, I actually use my tasks over in Remember the Milk, but you could use it here if you like. Other calendars are the ones that I've subscribed to that other people made. The Add Gadget by URL. This let me add in the Remember the Milk plugin that I'm using. And I use Remember the Milk for my reoccurring tasks. Not my project tasks, but like every day online what my activity is to be. So I use that for some of these features here. Free or busy will tell me if I need to look up if somebody's busy. Your view is here as well. Here is that jump to the date option. I can see when my next meeting is scheduled. Event flare gives you that kind of emoji options in there. And a smart rescheduler is there, and also there's my world clock. And you could shuffle these around by clicking on these things, and you can minimize them and I believe drag them around as needed, so that's an option too. If I were looking again at under creating an event, let's go to create event, I would see my event flare will show up over in this area. Just know that it should work for you. But that's Google Calendar in a nutshell. That's really how to get in and make use out of Google Calendar. And the only other feature that I can think of that you might want to do is under any of these things, under any of these calendars, you could see where it says share, edit settings. So again, I'm looking at calendars, my calendar folders, and here I can go into these share settings and see who is allowed to see this information. So I go to edit settings. I've made my calendar public, and I'm sharing whether it's free or busy, and you can see who I'm sharing this information with. If I wanted to share this with coworkers, I can, email them as well, and then that would share it out with them. Check 1, 1, 2. Finally, if you would like to embed a Google Calendar into your website, the easiest way to do that is if you were to go on the left-hand side to where it says any one of my calendars that I have listed here. So this is kind of my default categories of calendars. I could go to calendar settings, and then you could give it a different title, you could give it a description, a location. You can either set it to auto accept invites to that calendar if they don't conflict. All events to the calendar, automatically add all events. Don't show invitations if you don't want. Finally, it gives you some embed code, so you copy this code and paste it on your website. That's what you would do to show this calendar specifically on your own website. And notice too, you could get into customizing the color, size, and other options. Finally, at the bottom here, this is the information if you want to be able to display so that people can import this into their Outlook calendar in HTML mode or an XML mode. So there's the sharing settings so that they can import it into their own calendars. So that's Google Calendar in a nutshell. Check out all the functions and features you can use for it today.